Okay, I think we're live. So yeah, welcome to this first of our Google Workspace Hangout community sessions. We plan to be doing these at least once a month. So stay tuned to the end of this presentation to find out what we have planned for next month. And so what I'd like to do first of all is just go through a few kind of ground rules with regards to the rules of engagement that we'd like you to um, adhere to when we're doing these from a Google Meet perspective. So those who are part of the community have the option to join in real time the session. We're also broadcasting to LinkedIn. So if anyone's on LinkedIn and you've not joined the community, please add a message to the LinkedIn chat, and we will invite you to next month's session. So what I'd like you to do in order to make this as collaborative as possible, please turn on your cameras. If you don't want to be displayed and saved on the video, then obviously we understand that you may not want to do that. Please use the Q&A if you want to add any questions for the end of the session. Presenters, please put those in the chat. And as mentioned at the end of the session, we will be stopping the live feed from on LinkedIn, and we will be exclusively in the Google Meet, where we'll have conversations about the topic that we have presented. So with that, I'd just like to kind of just go over the agenda before handing over to our colleagues at Damson. So if I just do next slide. Okay, so let's do some introductions, and then I'll hand over to Damson. So I'm Paul Lees. I'm the founder and CEO of Besmin Labs. We're a Google Workspace partner. But from a community perspective, we're not here to pitch to you. The aim of these communities is to bring like-minded workspace administrators together, people who have Google Workspace in their environments and want to have discussions with other workspace engineers and administrators. The whole idea is that we're not going to be doing any pitching. We will also have partners in the community, and again, they've been asked not to do any pitching to the community. If anybody does kind of pitch to you, please let us know, and we will eject them from the community. So with that, I'd like to hand over to my colleagues at Damson. Not quite sure who wants to go first, but yeah, Eric.
I'll say ladies first here. Noelle, if you want to kick
off. Perfect. Yes, that's fantastic.
Just your introduction.
Oh, hi folks, my name's Noelle. I'm based in Dublin, and as Paul said, I work for Damson Cloud, and I'm our professional Google Workspace trainer. Myself and Eric have been heavily engaged in generative AI inside of Google Workspace for the last year. And to people, how we talk to users, how we talk to admins, and how we talk to our clients. Eric?
Perfect, thank you. Just to add to that, I'm the account manager here at Damson Cloud. I look after existing clients, and mainly what we've been having is these kind of Gemini conversations with existing clients, and everything kind of maximize that. But obviously, there's been a couple of changes here as well, hence the agenda here today. So kind of what we're going to go through from a Damson perspective is the Google changes that came about in January of this year, Gemini security, and then a live demo then as well. And then I'd encourage people then to look at in the group discussion to kind of talk about how you found it in your business, because it's always useful to get different perspectives. First part of this is really just being able to kind of peel back in terms of a Gemini introduction, and kind of we want to start from a ground level. And really what we wanted to look at was what happened back in January of this year, which was Google decided to include Gemini as a core SKU. And what this means for pretty much every business and every customer that we found is now they have Gemini in some way, shape or form. And the way that we kind of segment this out is in kind of 3 different buckets, which is, you know, you can get Gemini integrated in Google Workspace, and this propagates itself in pretty much every application. You'll notice it in Gmail, Drive, Meet, Docs, and the likes of that then as well. You'll also notice what people have access to is a web interface. And this is a really interesting one, is that there's more than one way to interact with Gemini. And generally, when we go through this with customers, is trying to kind of find where they look at Gemini and where they want to kind of look at generative AI. So if you look at Gemini Advanced, the way that we kind of explain this to customers is it's a web interface to have kind of a multi-turn conversation. There is some existing links in there with Google Workspace through extensions as well, but really that's the ability to kind of select different models. There's a number of different ones available there at the moment, but that's kind of your full-fledged model from Google. And this is kind of an interesting way that we look at it. There's more than one way to interact with it, and it's really useful for clients just to kind of understand it. The final part of this that's kind of been activated is essentially a core model plus extras. And what I mean by this is it's Google looking at what they can do with Gemini, putting some stuff on top of it, whether that be context or a nice UI filter, that means that people can get the most out of a generative AI model. So the two most interesting ones that we've seen at the moment are Google Vids, which is obviously still in its early stages, but it's the ability to generate video content with Gemini. And then we're also looking at Notebook LM. And this came out probably the back end of last year. And really what this is looking at is the ability to use Gemini as a large language model, put some context on top of it, whether that be your own sources, your own documents, web pages, or whatever have you, and then be able then to reference and interrogate that data. So it's a really interesting way to kind of look at it. These are now all built in as core SKUs. And of course, there's a couple of advantages with that then as well. A lot of people that we've spoken to over the last couple of weeks actually don't understand the extent of Gemini in Google Workspace, and they don't understand where it pops up. So kind of what we looked at with this one was, where is it in Google Workspace? Where can people see it? And to kind of make sure that people know that it's available as well. You'll see in the top left-hand side, you look at the likes like Help Me Write in Gmail and Google Docs. You'll also look at Help Me Visualize in Google Slides. That's the ability to create stock images available for slides, which generally wouldn't recommend them going external out to clients, but it is a useful thing to know. And then down the bottom, you'll see the ability to help you organize data in the likes of Sheets and Google Drive. And probably the most useful feature that we found over the last couple of months is actually the ability to kind of use it in Google Meet. So what you can do is you can do take notes for me, and these have gotten better and better as we went through this process. But you'll see there's a lot of stuff in Google Workspace that's available there, along with the other two ways to kind of collaborate on it as well. Matthew, did you have a question? The next area that we look at, and we've kind of seen this with every client as we looked at Gemini, and it kind of comes up again and again, is really around security. Everybody's worried about an AI tool in their business, and a lot of people are kind of rightfully worried about what it can do within a business. So what we look to do here is kind of strip back and understand, okay, what is Gemini doing in the background? And the way we do this is kind of look at the life of a prompt. So the idea behind this is on the left-hand side, a user can ask it to create an email, create a document, refine a document, and what happens once that is inputted into the system. So what happens is Gemini retrieves relevant content. Think of this as context plus your prompt, and this is provided out then to the Gemini model. Now, what you'll see here is it crosses a boundary between a customer data boundary and a Google Workspace data boundary. And this is important. The model lives outside your organization, but it's only taking a minimal amount of data. Once this is passed into Gemini, it's not used or stored in any way. It's not used to improve the model. And this is important for people to realize. We've gotten this question time and time again of, is this being used to generate new content, to train a model? No. Now that's important to understand that that's on paid plans, but a lot of customers have come to us to say people are using it through Gmail accounts that will train a model. And that's an important distinction for people to understand. The way that we kind of look at this one is a corporate approved IT, generative AI system is better than a system that people can log into and nobody has any understanding of where the data is going. From there, it gets run through the Gemini model. Now, there's varying different forms of the Gemini model depending on what way you're interacting with it. But from there, it creates a tailored response, which goes back into your customer data boundary. And this is where it kind of looks to inherit the existing permissions that are in place in the business. This is important because we've kind of seen customers looking at this like as the IT overhead for being able to set up a generative AI system is generally quite high. The existing permissions, existing sharing, and any other DLP controls that are here are, will it inherit any additional permissions? Are people able to find content they're not meant to have access to? And the simple answer is no. It's based on kind of your existing sharing permissions. So generally what we look at here is a good foundation of proper sharing within a business and proper kind of prompts out for people to say like, look, you know, you need to understand how to use this in a business context, and people should be okay to use it. On top of this as well, what Google has looked at is really going on kind of a certification run. And this is really because they're looking to launch Gemini into pretty much every business and every industry. And this is to make sure that people feel comfortable at kind of a SecOps level and at a CTO level, that the business is comfortable with what's going on, especially if they have compliance standard for regulated industries, just to make sure that people understand that this is a compliance tool. It is good to go, and it is kind of based on a core tenet of Google, which is privacy by design. From here, I'm going to pass you on to Noelle for a live demo, and then we'll wrap up then with kind of our top tips for what we've seen with clients over the last couple of months.
Thanks. Thanks, Eric. I'm just going to change up how I present here because I want to show you my entire screen. Okay, folks, so to give you a little bit of context, as I said, myself and Eric have been working with demoing Gemini inside of Google Workspace, and we've been working in two capacities with that. Initially, it was saying, do you want a license? Come and have a look at what it can do. And now in the last few months, it has been more focused on, okay, you are a trainer, you are an IT admin, here's what's happening for your users if this is turned on in your environment. And a lot more of this is talking to our customers about the potential and very much talking to them about that security piece. And allaying fears either for users who think this is going to take away my job, or for people in the security space or in the IT space who are worried about documents getting shared and people seeing documents that they shouldn't be able to see. So this is one of the things you have to be aware of if you're live demoing Gemini. Well, there's a number of things that you have to be aware of. For those of you who are a partner, you may be doing these demos already. For those of you who are showing these to your users within your organization, the first thing you want to know is where is everything? And as soon as you know where everything is, you have to then keep checking that, because sometimes it moves and sometimes it gets more advanced functionality that arrives between today and yesterday. Another thing is you have to get very uncomfortable with being uncomfortable when you are demoing this product. And that's because it's AI, it's constantly learning. The last time we delivered a similar webinar like this, I think I tested my prompt 10 minutes before we started the webinar, and the prompt that I used didn't work in the webinar. We had to think on our feet. It's the same prompt that I'm going to use today. So what you will find is the AI is constantly learning. You do hit little bumps in the road. So it's a slightly more nerve-wracking demo that you have to give. So with that, let's have a little look. I'm going to go into my demo account. And the first thing that we need to sort of see is, where are our users or our clients' users going to see these touch points inside of the Google Workspace? So straight off, it's a little confusing. Some stuff is immediately obvious and some stuff isn't quite so immediately obvious. So starting from our logged in Chrome profile, we can access our usual Google Workspace apps here. Where we're going to be able to see Gemini is inside of Gmail, inside of Drive, elements in chat, lots in Meet, Docs, Sheets, Slides. And we'll also find now on the little waffle menu, we have access to the Gemini app. And launching the Gemini app from there, we're coming into Gemini Advanced. What we are saying to our customers is there's plenty integrated inside of the Google Workspace environment, but where you can get some really heavy lifting done is inside of the Gemini app. We're talking to lots of clients who have shadow IT and they're using ChatGPT, and they have used it for a while. They are quite established. They're concerned about moving across. I would very much say at this point, I can't really see a lot in difference between the two. It's really the practice of just moving across what you've been doing, the workflows that you've been doing inside of ChatGPT. And there goes another subscription, which is all we'll all be delighted with. Up here at the top, we can see that there are a number of different models available to us. Most of the time I'm working in Gemini Advanced or 2.0 Flash. We do have one that a lot of people are talking about at the moment, which is the deep research. But you'll notice while I'm sitting in advanced, I also have access to deep research here within my prompt window. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. So in preparing for demos, the hardest part I always think is coming up with scenarios for the things that you're going to do. So for the example today, the little prompt I have is that I'm a manager in a HR team and we're just about to get generative AI features. What's going to happen? Like, what can my users see? So we hit the button and we all say a little prayer. And for this demo, it's worked. So very, very quickly with a smaller question like this, we've got some really good information in here, and it's telling me broken down into sections what it's able to do in each of these different areas that I'm coming across. You'll notice because I simply put in a prompt and hit click, my deep research option has disappeared out of the prompt bar, and that's because I've started a piece of work. I'm not doing a research piece of work, so it's recognized for this particular chat that we're going to have that I don't need that, but we still have the canvas options here. Much of what we say, if you are going to be training users or if you're going to be talking to clients about training users, the prompt is the key. Getting the prompt right is going to get you the best return from the AI itself. We have a less classy way of saying it, but the classy way of saying it is rubbish in, rubbish out. So you must be structuring your prompts well, and we'd recommend that you're putting training in place for how to build those prompts. There's lots of resources available through the Google's own websites and in some of the learning and help articles that are out there. Now, what we are finding a lot of the time is Gemini itself will attempt to help you. So in this case, I'm going to say, right, I understand now what the features are that are available to me. I'm going to ask it a further question. And I'm going to build quite a big prompt, a bigger prompt this time. And this time I'm giving it the context. And this is what I'm talking about with your prompts. So here we're asking it to imagine it's running an introduction session. And I've asked it to provide a detailed agenda of the session. What we find as well is let Gemini help you. A lot of the time I'm finishing prompts with, is there any more information you need to know? Are there any questions you'd like to ask me before you begin? We've come to working in this way with the generative AI by kind of viewing it as, we call it enthusiastic intern. We had a client who referred to it as their therapist. But much like anybody would tell you if you're going to the doctor, you can't walk into the doctor and say, I've been sneezing, what's wrong with me? You must give the context, you must give the background, and you must give the sort of, in some cases, the output that you're looking for. So if I do this, again, it's going to run my little prompt, and it's having a little think about what it needs to understand. My prompts are working quite fast. Yeah, at the minute. So in here, it's saying it needs to know technical proficiency of the team, focus points, company culture, and the goals of the company. So here's what I've prepared earlier. I'm just going to give it some of that information. And I'm going to tell it, here's how literate we are, how many members we have, how long we're thinking, and I'm asking it, is that enough to plan the session? Now, what I'm going to do, just to show you this piece in action, is I'm going to ask it to do this in Canvas. So I'm going to engage the canvas. I'm going to hit submit. Nope, that didn't work that time. It did work. And what it's doing here now, what the canvas does is allows you to almost run a little bit of a split screen. So here I can see the answers that I'm getting here. That's the generative AI speaking to me, Gemini having a chat with me. And over to the side, what it's done is created a little canvas that I can now start to work in. It's almost like a little Google Docs inside of the Gemini app. And here I can see the title, I can see the goals and the target audience, and I can now begin to work with elements inside of this to either ask Gemini a question, or over to the side here, I have some controls that allow me to change the tone, to suggest some edits, and even to do things like change the length. So at the moment, I've got a little slider, it's in the middle. I can change it to say, make this shorter, make it a bit longer, or make it very long. And there, the AI goes off, does the little work for me and it edits it immediately inside of the canvas. Now, what's nice about being able to work inside the canvas is that interoperability that we get. So I can click this button up here and I can export it to Docs, or I can simply copy this and lift it into another piece of software that I might be working on. And I have other controls along the application for Gemini. There's quite a lot to get into here. We do also, as I said, have the deep research piece. Deep research is fun to play with. I'm going to start a new chat, and I'm going to give deep research a little something to do. So I've just added in a little prompt for it here. The blank page, the first draft, is the hardest part of content writing. Discuss. And I'm going to access deep research and turn this on, and it's going to begin starting to work. And initially with deep research, what it says to us is, this is what I'm intending to do. And I can see the steps. It's got a few websites that it wants to have a look at. It's going to then analyze the results that it's got from those websites, and then it's going to create for me a report. If I'm happy with this structure that it's going to go ahead with, I can click to start the research, or I can edit the plan if I want to change what our plan is. So I'm going to start the research, and I'm basically going to let Gemini go off and start to work on that. This can take time. This is a longer piece of work that happens in the background, but I can navigate away and come back to it. We can see it's already beginning to work and starting to summarize those websites that it's visiting. There's so much packed into Gemini. I could go for quite some time, but some very simple things that we're seeing along here is that for this HR and generative AI piece, I can access that chat again. All of my history is going to live down the side here, and I can move that out permanently from the hamburger menu. And here, if this is a chat that I return to regularly, where I have set up the context in the chat and I want to return back and ask a further question, I can simply pin that chat, and that chat will now sit at the top of my recent chats, and I can create a number of pinned chats. Off the top of my head, I feel like it's 20. But I can check that out later. We also have inside Gemini, at the risk of overrunning my time, we also have inside here what's called a gem manager. The Gemini gems are essentially inserts of context. So I can build a little Gemini chatbot that I can talk to, and I can give that Gemini chatbot a context to begin talking to me with. I can then return again to that gem with that context already built in for me, already part of the conversation that we're having, and I can start to ask it questions. Now, where this is useful is it means each time I start a new chat, I don't have to start setting up all that context if I have a particularly thorny or a particularly deep cut on the way that I need to look at something. As a trainer, I use this a lot of the time. I have a gem set up to say, you're a trainer, here's how you have to explain stuff, here's the information sources that you should look in, here's the tone of voice that you normally write in, and it's able to respond to me and write things for me that are not click a button, walk away, post the thing out. This is an iterative experience happening between you and the AI, and it's important that you are constantly reviewing it, checking it, putting your little tweaks and personality into it. But when I'm working with my little writing gem, it can get me a good 60% of the way, and I get my edits done. And it essentially takes me from the hardest thing ever, the white page, up to a first draft of ideas. And I can literally brain dump at it and get it to get that into some kind of format for me so that I can then start to tweak and iterate with that. Inside of Gemini too, we have settings that allow us to engage with Google Workspace itself. What we do say to our users or any of our admins, this has to be turned on first at the admin panel, and then individually the user needs to turn on the extension for themselves. So once that's turned on, inside of my little chat window here, inside of my chat window, I can now ask it to have a look at a document that exists inside of my Google Workspace. So this can look backwards into Google Workspace. Now we'll jump into Google Workspace and we'll have a look at how Google Workspace can talk out to Gemini itself. The first thing I like to show for people, we're not going to be able to get to look at everything across the board of the applications, but we'll show you some of the nice little pieces we like to show people. The first up is the ability to work on drafts inside of your Gmail. This is one of my favorite examples I like to use. And this is how we can take some work that we've done, refine it, and make it ready for sending out. So I don't know if any ranty emails where you're really anywhere between a half an hour to an hour, making this sound a lot more professional so that Dave doesn't send it off to HR and you don't get in trouble. So what we have in here, along the bottom, in the middle of all the other tools that we have a little help me write function. When I engage the function, it's going to look at whatever's written inside of my email, and I have the ability to polish it, formalize it, elaborate it, shorten it, or I can just ask it to help me write a brand new email. Now, where I'd love this to be is that I could just highlight a singular line and say, rewrite this line. That's not currently where it is at the moment. If I ask it to rewrite, elaborate, or shorten, it's going to take everything that I have in the compose window and take action upon that. So for me, in this case, I'm going to ask it to formalize it. It's going to start having a look at the ranty document that I put together, and it formalizes it really quickly into still telling Dave that I'm not happy with what happened, but it's in a lot more formal language, and I'm less likely to get held in front of HR. I can insert this, make sure that I remove the original, and this is as good as ready to go. This is one of the things that we've been finding it really useful for. The other is the help me write function, where I can say, please write an email and tell me this, tell me that, tell me the other. And it gets you off out of the blocks, getting something down, and again, away from the blank page. Another way in which we talk to people about using this is if you are a particularly succinct writer who doesn't put all the fancy whistles of like, hello, Matthew, it's so nice to see the sun outside. How are you today? And a nice sign off at the end. If you're just one of those very succinct writers, using something like the elaborate function will put those niceties at the top and the bottom of your email for you. Where we really see a lot of benefit inside of the Gmail app is the Ask Gemini function up here. So what Ask Gemini does is this piece that I talked about, where inside of Google Workspace, I can reach out and I can interact with the Gemini app. By engaging it here, I can ask it to do a number of things when it's looking around in my inbox. So for example, there was an email, God, it was like 2 weeks ago. One of my colleagues has had a baby, can't remember what the baby's called, and Bob's just walked into the office. So I'm just going to ask the Gemini to take a look through my emails, and could it tell me what Bob's called his baby? We've used this for things like, tell me what my flight number is, tell me what hotel I've booked into. It's had a little look and it's come back really quickly and said, Bob's baby is called Bonnie. So I can say, hey, Bob, how's the baby Bonnie? And we move on with our day. In other ways, I can check what time is lunch booked for on Tuesday, and I can query stuff that is sitting within my inbox. Next, we'll have a quick look across into Google Drive. Google Drive is certainly building. We are seeing things coming into it quite recently. There was a few bits that dropped, and there's some more stuff that has been promised on the roadmap. For now, when I'm talking to users, what I want to show them primarily is summarization. So here, I have a folder. It's called Training Proposals. I don't know what's in it. It's just been shared to me. I can quickly use the Summarize This Folder button. And it has a look at it, and it's able to quickly tell me what's happening in this folder. Now, I personally find this little side panel a little too thin for me to read. I can quickly drop it out, and I can pull it out even further if that's what I need to do. You can quickly have a look here, and it's telling me where it's basing its evidence or its information from here in the source. And if I don't like that summary, I can retry again. File, and it's going to do the same thing for me there. I might say, actually, I need to drop a little folder into this client projects. I can say to it, add a folder called sure. It's going to have a little look at that for me. And you can see it's just generated that little folder for me. I can click on the folder up here and I can open that folder and start working straight away in for it. You can also do this for files for you as well. So there's potential here. We can ask questions of the documents themselves. We can ask questions of files. I don't have a very deep folder full of documents at the moment to test. The only thing we will say is two things that your users or your clients are going to be interested in knowing is, can I type in here, how much does Fintan get paid every year? And have that information appear? No, I can't. I can't because there's been no documents shared with me that tell me what Fintan gets paid. That's the first thing. The second thing that people, the second thing that people are concerned about here is what happens if I get something back. Can I just say that's correct and I move on with my day? We would say that there's an element inside of Gemini where we need to make sure that we're going in, and before we give out information, we make sure that of the veracity of that information, particularly if it's around contractual pieces, confidential. Say everything needs an element of checking. It needs an element of iteration from a person. Again, it's us having a conversation with the AI. We're both responsible for the information that comes out. Well, I have 2 more minutes. I'm going to show one more piece. And then I'll talk quickly about some of the new pieces of functionality that have arrived. Those new pieces of functionality, certainly we're going to give some information on, but I'd really annoy Paul if I started to try and talk about them because they're really quite robust pieces, applications and feature sets. That evening session. So first up, what I want to is to make myself a quick new document. And here inside of my document, once it loads, I'm going to use the help me write function, which is built into the document here. It's similar to the functionality that we saw inside of Gmail, but we find it's way more powerful. In Gmail, I definitely feel like the AI has a context window or an instruction to be brief or to be concise in its writing. We can get an awful lot more out of the help me write function in here. So I'm going to ask it to create a welcome or briefing document for the attendees for the file. He's at, I'm sure that's not going to work for me right now. Oh, hold on. I know what I'll do. Hold on. I'm just going to take the link for this file. Get a link in the file, and I'm going to ask it to look at that document to create this is going to set to work. So what it's given me here is a little viewing window, so I can have a look at what it's done. The nice thing about working inside of Google Docs now is this isn't just a whole lot of text. There's an element of formatting that comes along with it. We've got checkboxes stuck in here. There's probably a bit more work I'd like to be done on this, but it was quite a light document that I gave it to work with. So I'm going to insert this document here. And now, as I'm going down through it, again, there's this element of iterating and working with the AI. So I can highlight a little piece of the document, and I can say, I actually want this to be a little bit longer. So from my right-click menu, from one of my format menus, from the little floating icons that you can see around, as we're used to, Google Workspace has lots of different ways to do different things. I'm just going to ask it to make this, to rephrase this. We can see if I can get some length on it. Not giving me the elaborate function right now. So this is one of the things you have to be aware of when you're demoing. But this is the point at which, unlike the Gmail, we can go in now and with smaller sections of the text, we can start to work over and iterate those sections of the text. So with that, I'm going to go back to our little presentation here. I'll just put us back into presentation mode. We're back up. Now, from here, what I want to just introduce you to are two of the new features that will have arrived for your users. The first one is Notebook LM. I cannot in 2 minutes tell you how much you can do with Notebook LM. Notebook LM, what it's able to do now is to take information, understand it on your behalf, and essentially work like a research assistant. And I know what you're thinking. You're going, but no, well, I thought we had an intern. Why are we using the idea of Notebook LM is we are going to use Gemini if we don't really know what we're talking about, we have no resource elements, and we just want to start a conversation and start to learn using the information that's out there that we don't know exists. When we're working with information we have and we know it exists, we can use Notebook LM. So for any of you who are sitting here going, give me, this is great. What we'll do is the HR team can throw in all of our policies and all of our benefit packages, and they can put all that information into a notebook, and we can share that notebook to people, and they can ask questions of the research, then can turn up the answers that they need. Inside of Notebook LM, the big key things that people are asking us is, what about my data now? Because this is a whole other application. It is a whole other application. However, Google traffic here is this is grounded in the sources that you give it. It is less likely to hallucinate and to come up with maybe answers because it's only based on what it's read or what it's reviewing in the documents. Now, I say read in the documents. I'll do the skip over to here. This is multimodal and multilingual. So I can put videos in here, I can put imagery in here, and I can put text documentation in here, and it's able to cope with all of those. And it works in many languages. I have a huge, big list of the languages. I don't think it does traditional Chinese yet, but there is a big range of languages that it will work with, both for an input and an output source. And like we said, what's the benefit of it? It just takes multiple sources, it summarizes those contents, and it can put it out in lots of different ways. Eric, I know your favorite way is to give yourself to the information in very American accents, having a conversation that basically contextualizes the research for you. The next one I'm going to look at very quickly is Google Vids. This is now a new application. So this is part of the Google Workspace environment now. A lot of your users won't find this easily because it's not in the waffle yet. You do have to just go to the Google Vids site and it will log you in. What Google Vids is really useful for is, again, if we want to talk about shadow IT, this is a great way to do what you may have already been doing on a piece of SaaS like Loom or similar. But where the AI is in this, what I can do with Google Vids is I can point it at another document and say, make me a quick video that I can use to send out to my team to explain something. Or if I'm in a management position, and working as we are, myself, Eric, and Fintan, in a remote environment, I could sit here and go, I'm not going to do one of those boring handover documents that everybody delivers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick 3-minute video. I'm going to show the documents that I'm working with. I'm going to give my update, and then I'm going to send that video across to Finn and Eric. And then they know what I was working on, what's handed over, and where I'll go whenever I come back. It's a high level quick over those ones. And then I'm going to hand back for Eric to have a quick chat about our top tips, what we've been learning in the last year about how to go in, talk to your clients, show their users, or show your users what's available in here, and how we've kind of structured our attack plan, if you like.
Thanks, Noel. Can you just give me sharing permissions there again, just co-presenter? Because once it stopped sharing it, it removed it. Yeah, just let me annotate.
Okay, 1 second. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. So as Noel said, yeah, we've kind of come up with a couple of top tips. So over the last kind of 12 months, we've had a lot of interactions with clients. And really, this was kind of our learnings from that over the last couple of months and kind of what we're taking going forward, given that it's now a core SKU. And one of the main things that we kind of looked at was the idea of engaging IT admins early in the process. If we kind of started at an end user level and then we flip over to admins, there's generally this hesitation around security and what's this tool going to do. We find engaging IT admins at a top level to kind of bring them through the security settings, what's available, and what this means for the business is kind of the best place to start, because people in a business need to be comfortable with what a tool is going to do. And the first questions that we get asked by pretty much every IT team are, let's go through the security settings and understand them in depth. And this is kind of where we start. And once that's comfortable, the conversation can kind of move forward. And then we kind of look at like that executive sponsorship. Generally, we found that being kind of executive sponsorship from either C-suite or else kind of senior management in the business. And really the idea behind this one is to kind of reassure people that something like Gemini isn't going to take somebody's job. It's not going to do their job for them, but they're comfortable with them using the tool, and to make sure that they feel confident that they can use it in day-to-day life and kind of look to see benefits out of it then as well. It kind of makes people feel like they're being kind of embraced on what's in there and what's in Google Workspace at the moment. So it's kind of the pyramid style of like IT admins are generally the top of that pyramid. Then we get down into senior management and senior executives. And then what we look at then is kind of end user training. And this is really kind of where people look to try and take on end user training as like a collaborative approach to understand what's available there. As Noel said, there's a lot of buttons to press in terms of Gemini. It's a matter of understanding what's this look like for my day-to-day role. And we found different kind of pockets of the organization have different use cases for it. So it might be somebody in HR can use Notebook LM and they can get started today. Likewise, somebody in support could look to use the kind of polish out of emails, and that's where they start in it today as well. And it's trying to kind of get people a starting point so that when they can start then to explore it as well. But it's really kind of structuring it as everybody's up to the same level of learning. The next part on this one is really around a kind of continuous learning program. And the reason for this is Gemini is like no product we've ever seen from Google in terms of the pace of release. We're seeing releases probably every 2 or 3 weeks at this stage. And it's really about kind of keeping on top of these. And not every business, I look at this as like, if I use something like Take Notes for me 6 months ago, it's not the same product now. Maybe we need to retry it again and see, can we replace an existing tool to make sure that we're kind of making the most out of it as well. There's that kind of continuous learning path to make sure when there is updates that come along from an IT perspective, they're being pushed out to end users. And what we found that's really useful is a feedback loop. And this is between kind of everybody in the organization, from like the IT level down all the way down to end users. Because generally what we find is when we kind of ran pilots like last year, it was really around the kind of pockets of the organization that find use cases that we haven't thought of. Using it for, summary of don't really know what to do with, just giving that like 30,000 foot view to be able to give everybody a scope of what's in there. Likewise, to be able to kind of extract out kind of the key details from a contract, let's say in Google Drive. We're kind of expecting a lot of IT teams to be in limbo at the moment. What we said to clients is, look, encouragement is good to try and make sure that people are using a tool. What we've also said is maybe get a little bit more stringent around the likes of like ChatGPT, and then try and look at like this is a corporate approved solution. It's to wrap up. Oh, yeah.
Eric, handed back to you, Paul.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry,
I
guys.
think you froze for a second.
Yeah.
Just to wrap up.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that, Noel. That was awesome from a demo perspective, and Eric, thanks for the technical elements and the security perspective. So if you could all hang on, we're going to jump into a bit of a chat just to kind of share some feedback on what you saw. Also share some things that you've been doing with Gemini in Google Workspace. If you could just move to the next slide, please. Oh, I think I've got that control, haven't I? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, so next month we've got Liam from DPD, and he's going to be talking about how DPD are using Google Workspace in their environments. And for those who know DPD, they're a career organization. They have thousands and thousands of employees all using Google Workspace. So really thankful for Liam for offering to do the session next month. If you would be interested in either hosting a session or speaking at a session, then please drop me an email. If you're interested in joining the community, if you're on LinkedIn, please again put a comment into the chat, and we will invite you into the community. So with that, we're going to say goodbye to LinkedIn, and we will then continue the conversation here in the Google chat.
Bye, LinkedIn.
So goodbye, LinkedIn.